Yes, wonderful to connect again with Professor Bert Roebben, or Bert as we know you. And I recall a few years ago, during the COVID time, we had these Dean Stokes at the time, and we shared thoughts about curriculum in the context of a pandemic. You might remember. After that, we also had engagements and so on. So it's wonderful to have you here back in person in Stellenbosch.
Pleasure is mine.
Maybe just to give a bit of a background, Professor Bert Roebben is currently professor in religious education at the Bonn University, pro-decan also at the Bonn University, and specifically the Catholic Theological Faculty. Previously, you taught at KU Leuven in Belgium. You're originally from Belgium. And also at the University of Tilburg in the Netherlands, and then also at the Technical University in Dortmund.
Right.
And then since October 2017, it was the same time that I moved to Stellenbosch.
I know, yeah.
You moved to Bonn.
Right.
That was an interesting coincidence.
Yeah, that's right. Yeah, we called it together a sort of spring in our careers. Springtime in the career. Yeah. Start over again and get new opportunities. Really. Fascinating.
No, this is a wonderful journey, and of course, Bert is also previously was the president of the International Association for the Study of Youth Ministry, also for the Religious Education Association president, and now currently you've recently been elected as president of the European Forum for Religious Educators. That's quite a journey.
Yeah, that's right. It's a journey. I'm working on it. It's and it's. I must say, the last time now, this last call to become the chair of this association was really like a present in a way. And people said, well, we need a new chair. Would you like to do it? And I said, well, I can think about it. I can think a long time about it, but I just followed my heart and I said, yes, I do it. Yes, I definitely want to do it. Because it's so important. The challenges, you could say, these days in the world of education, in the world of theology, in the world of religious education these days in Europe, but also globally, of course. And I think in Europe, I know where I am. I know how to navigate, so to say, in all the complexity. And that's what I said. Yes, I want to do that. Here I am.
Fascinating. No, I mean, it is important. You talk about the complexities, the challenges. I want to come back to that because it would be interesting for me, and I think also for everyone listening, tuning in to also hear from a European perspective, on the one hand, theological perspective, but also in terms of religious education perspective, what those challenges are. But I was wondering, as I was reflecting on our conversation, Bert, and also for myself, because I'm at a stage in my life as currently the dean, but also as a theologian, where I constantly ask myself the question, in my formative years, as a younger person, maybe a child, but also a younger person, what were those formative events, perhaps, people in my life, that have shaped me to be who I am today. It's an ongoing kind of reflection, and also relate that to the work that I'm doing as we form leaders, as we form religious educators, a new generation of researchers, perhaps. And I was also wondering, if you want to also reflect on that. What were those formative things in your own journey that have made you to be a theologian and an educator and who you are today?
Yeah, when I look back, I would say perhaps two things were very formative during my childhood and youth. In the childhood, it was really the experience of a safe space, the family, and at the same time the awareness of things changing in the Catholic Church in the 60s and 70s at that time. My parents were very very much engaged in local parish life and in the community, but also from a very, let me say, post-Vatican II perspective, in a way. That was very exciting in a way. It was new, was so many things could change and could have changed. Yes. So that's one thing. I think I really took up the, let me say, also the sort of critical way of dealing with your faith. Faith is there, but also be aware of where it brings you and what it does with you, and how to relate to that. That's one thing. And the other thing is, I would say during my youth, really this experience of being a youth leader. I was 16 years old and I was already a youth leader. yes. And I for many years.
Days.
Yeah, right. Those were the days, my
Those
friend.
were the days.
Yes,
Those
really,
were the
that was
days.
beautiful days. Actually, being struggling and but having lots of fun. Also with your friends and organizing summer camps for 150 kids. And doing the right thing in my mind at that time, the thing of bringing people together, having fun together, enjoying life, and also being aware of where the inspiration comes from. That was for me Christianity. That was the gospel, the living gospel in a way. Which was not always easy because people thought otherwise. But at the same time there was this gut feeling of, well, this is really what I want to do. And that was all, let me say, these two experiences, these basic experiences were embedded in a sauce, if I may, of liberation, of freedom, of possibilities in a way, in many ways, in the 70s, 80s, in those years in Europe, you could say.
I so much find resonance with this experience of being a youth leader.
Yes, I know.
in the teenage years, and I mean, what are we talking about now? The 70s and the 80s.
Yeah, right.
1970s and 80s. And how those experiences in those very ordinary youth fellowship events, we were talking in our space, youth associations. Starting to just read the Bible in a group, or starting to reflect on the Bible, but then also starting to lead little groups. You talked about organizing camps and
service
projects with our group. How that shaped us,
completely
to be able to make a bigger impact and also your not just skills, but also your character.
Definitely.
Understanding of faith.
That was like a vocation, That was I felt that deep inside already very early, and but also through struggles, through pain as well, but also through deep moments of joy. That this was something for me. I wanted to do something in that respect. Perhaps the thing that makes us different from each other is the European experience at that time. That this was also a Christian organization. Hero was the name of it, Christian youth movement, a Catholic youth movement. But there was not so much connection anymore to faith.
Interesting.
So we did, like you were talking about Bible study and stuff, or so. We didn't do that. No. So I felt sometimes also alone in that. There was this deep also religious vocation in that. And I was able to communicate about it, and I'm still actually, in looking back to that, I'm still doing. That's all the plausibilization, talking about it and making it plausible for people what it means, finding ways to talk about it. That was then the case, still the case, but that was already in those years was a heavy thing to do. I remember that vividly. But at the same time, people had respect for what I did and the way I looked at these things, and
reflecting on your experience and the difference with our experience here in South Africa, or in Africa broader. Obviously, I cannot say that my personal experience is experience for the whole of Africa, of course. And the same just you with regard to Europe.
Me, of course.
But in the 70s was really also for us a time of awakening. So, we grew up in what was known as a mission church, Zendenkerk, So to a large degree, our youth ministry and children's ministry processes were shaped by what was called the mother church, Moederkerk. And so we received that. We grew up in that environment, in that formative space. But there was also, especially in the 80s in our church, also this awakening. We called it conscientization.
Really?
To become conscious also of our social context, the apartheid.
Sounds very Freirian.
Freirian, yes.
Of course, of course.
That's the Paulo Freirean kind of language. And Paulo Freire's thoughts shaped, many of the kind of conscientization shifts that took place in the 70s. And so it influenced the church, the broader liberation movements, if I may put it this way. But then also the church shaped those movements because many of our ministers were involved, in this conscientization journey.
So it was praxis related. It was not just let me say a theoretical concept. It was really something, grassroots that happened.
Absolutely. And so while in your case there was, if I may put it this way, you must correct me. There was more almost a secularization of the youth ministry. In our case, it was more. You can contextualization of our youth ministry. So our youth ministry became a ministry that responded to the context of the time. So our youth leaders, like I said, they were also the political activists on campus or on school campuses, with the school boycotts. But then, also translating that experience back to the church. So our youth camps, youth congresses, which we organized, also became the spaces for political
but was
awareness.
it not in a way also a secularization, you could say, of the process of youth ministry, in a way that were there chances also to, you were referring to, we brought that back to the church, these ideas, huh? Was there also a sort of theological language that was let me say parallel to that dynamic? This was not the case in Europe, for instance. There was this interest. There was a lot of youth work going on. Also with this idea of conscientization and so on. But there was no link to faith, to the faith inspiration in that respect.
In our case, in terms of language, we would also still use the language of conversion or the language of confession. For example, a church would develop a confession that speaks to the realities of the time. And our church would discern what is our faith for our time. How do we read the Bible contextually? And many of the Bible studies that I referred to earlier became what we now also refer to as contextual Bible reading. How do our context speak to our interpretation of the biblical text? This text that used to be an innocent text now becomes a subversive text. But in terms of working with other youth formations that are not explicitly Christian or explicitly religious, obviously the language also in that space also had to be in a sense tempered. We had to also say, in a public space, we may not use the theological terms or kerkelijke termen, churchy terms, but in a sense we want to speak to the same realities. So I mean, in terms of that journey, it also ran parallel to a dialogue between what you can call your contextual youth ministries, but then also your traditional youth ministries that still continued,
within the church,
within the churches as well,
within the traditional space, so to say.
And but come back to the earlier point.
Yeah.
It's so formative in
It's
terms of who we are
amazingly
today.
formative. Yeah, right.
We cannot take ourselves, remove ourselves from those roots. You know, it was
even in a context like this. I mean, in academia, this is something that is still there. It's in your backpack, so to say. It's always there. You take it along with you, and it helps you in many ways. And when you look back at things, and it helps you in many ways to be a leader, so to say.
Yes, absolutely.
To discover what leadership could mean.
We tap into those resources.
It's amazing.
I
that's why we need to still always, over and over again, I think we need to look very carefully at the development of our young people. Where it's so formative, these years, 14 till 25 or so, something like that. So 15 till 25, let me say it this way. It's about discovering also passion, and where do I want to die for, I wanted to die for things, I remember that vividly. I won't say this anymore today, I think. I'm much more hesitant in saying this kind of stuff now. But still, at that time, yes, it was important to say something like that and to talk about it, yes, and to challenge friends about it. And so, friendship was all about sharing passions and so.
But I can still see that passion in you. I mean, you still carry that.
I can see it in you too. Yes. We can go on for hours like this. Uh-huh.
You on Monday in this week while you were in Stellenbosch. You and I want to refer to that. You spoke on the theme "In the Eye of the Storm," the work of the practical theologian in a world of transition. So if we could, jump to that world now, a world in transition. What is the storm that you are, or storms? Perhaps?
That's really the point. Yes, it's about storms. It's in plural, you could say, and it's really. In the literature, you can find this term now, this terminology of the polycrisis, one crisis after the other. So that was of course there's for a long time going on. I remember that also in my youth period already. The issue of ecologically being resilient and so on. That was already at the theme in those years. I remember that. So the ecological crisis, of course, the health crisis with Corona, of course. And then afterwards, of course, all the kinds of crises that came through the geopolitical situation in the world. For instance, it's not just an instance. It's really what is deeply affecting us in Europe these days is the war in Ukraine. And with all the let me say all this the elements that came after that, in the aftermath, the energy crisis, the way you also deal with the energy crisis in your country, load shedding and all.
Load shedding.
You see, this is the poly crisis, and we are often deeply involved in those crises, but at the same time we are also in moments of reflection that we can think about what to do in these crises. I remember very vividly also the experience of the lockdown, that you had to step back and you were sitting in your own safe space, and you were reflecting, what is important, what is really important now, what do we really want to take along with us afterwards. We didn't know how long this would take. So this kind of in the eye of the storm is the place where you need to be reflected, in a sense also relaxed, but not just lay back, but relaxed in a way that, in German they call it Gelassenheit, the open hands, and see what comes, what is in front of us, and how shall we react to that? What is our contribution to that? This kind of deep reflection, I think, that is something that we learned partly through Corona and through the lockdowns and so on, but we forgot it a bit, I think. And life goes on, everything goes on, and everything is running like crazy. Again, like before. And I think there was something very valuable in that, in being in the eye of the storm. And we were, and that's the point too, Reggie, we were globally in the same storm. That is an amazing thing. We never had that before, I think. Of course, there were the 2 world wars, and of course there was a lot of, geopolitical, there's a lot of things going on with the Cold War and so on since the 40s, 50s. But the global experience of dealing with the same virus and the hopes will something help us to recover from that. That was also very formative in a way, I think, and I would like to capitalize on that. Because there's so much power that we can share. That we have the same human experience. We have the same global experience. We can also talk about Anthropocene and so on. Fine, but in this moment of our development as a globe, we were at that time in the same not the same boat, but the same storm.
And the same storm, That,
with a lot of small boats,
I wanted to comment on that because you're right. I wanted to comment on that. We people here said we might have been in the same storm, but we're in different boats. And some is in this luxury boat, that are able to, I can buffer myself against the storm, while other is in this little dinghy, almost, bringing back this imagery of the Mediterranean, that kind of imagery. We're in different boats, and that is also part of the conversation and part of the storm.
I agree with you.
On a different level. A Roman Catholic, Leonardo Boff, he is, he's a well-known figure, in terms of the conversation from Latin America in the 70s and 80s. And I followed these reflections in the middle of the storm. And he was arguing, I don't know if I shared it with you, he maybe you saw it. He was saying that, in a sense, what we have experienced is that Mother Earth is in a sense, in a way, retaliating against the fact. I've been calling many times for you to be more conscious, be more sensitive, be more caring, be more communal in terms of what is needed, our relationships with each other as human, but also with Mother Earth. And here, this pandemic, this virus has challenged us, not challenged us, but brought us to a standstill almost, to say, this is an opportunity to build back better. But sadly, if we reflect on what happened during the pandemic in terms of the vaccine development and what was called at the time the vaccine hoarding and what we also, if we look back now, we see in terms of what has happened in the world, it is sad that on a deeper level, everything that was under the surface in terms of competition, in terms of hoarding it for myself, that just sort of came back again.
Yeah, amazing.
Amazing. And we lost that moment where we could have responded to the cry from Mother Earth or from our sisters and brothers around us to build back better. And that was for me quite a very deep and a thoughtful reflection, and also it really gave me perspective on like you said, the storm that we find ourselves. What are your thoughts on that?
I agree with you, and the same experience we had in another perspective probably, but I mean not the same perspective, but in other context. There was this, for instance, in schools. So kids would stay at home. And in many houses they had really difficulties with attending school. I mean, from a distance, because they only had one computer, for instance. Kids living in large cities in not so privileged situations. Or there was this amazing. Even my kids told me, "Well, Papa, this is not just, you know. Some kids, they have a swimming pool in the back. They have a beautiful time these days. Of course, yes? And others are struggling with one computer in the home and
overpopulation in the house.
Right.
I mean, in South Africa.
Yeah. In South
Africa. The conditions that people find themselves in. It was definitely same storm, but different boats.
Right. At the other hand, it was also nice. I remember that vividly when I was teaching online through Zoom, and I was in this Master of Ecumenical Studies program. I was on the way, and we had students from Africa zooming in at that time, and you could hear, because he couldn't put on his screen because that was too much internet that he should use. Okay, he left the screen out, but we could hear. We listened much more carefully. We could hear the chickens and the children playing in the village, you know, in the village center, you know. He was sitting with his laptop probably somewhere under a tree, and following the conversation in the classroom with the kids. So the local atmosphere came in, you know.
Yes.
So we were not disconnected completely. I thought often we were disconnected, but at the other hand, we were in a strange way reconnected with each other. And deeply connected.
And allowing those different contexts, to also then connect. You know,
from where are you talking about now? From where are you now? The where, you know, this is so important also. Where are you talking? From where are you talking now?
No, that's the opportunity we had, and I should actually correct myself. I think that's a lesson we learned. Also for now and for the future, that's an opportunity we have.
Of course,
in terms of our capabilities to be able to bring those worlds together.
You know, I would say very, very concretely for a curriculum, you could say it's good to be at a distance, and to hand in over information and also communication. But at the other hand, and this can be in packages, you know, and people can stay at home, but you definitely need also the learning moments in the presence of the other. So a curriculum should be both, I think. There's input that you can really deliver through Zoom sessions and through whatever blended learning and so on. But there is this need also for sitting together. I would say, well, we've learned a lot this semester. Let's sit 1 day or 2 days really intensively together. Could be a curriculum format. We still need to discover what that could mean. We should not forget it.
We should not forget the lessons. I think it's an important moment in our lifetime that still teach us, still challenge us.
And the other point is with the storm and the eye of the storm and so on is to the position of the practical theologian in an academic context, of the pastor in a local context, of the religious educator in a school. Context, is the one who is not fleeing away from the storm, who remains where he should be or she should be, you know. And I would love to call that the so-called wounded healer. That's an idea that comes from Carl Gustav Jung, that was later also picked up by Harry Nouwen. Also in his beautiful publications on that. I think this is a very interesting metaphor to think about what is the role then, you could say, of the leader, of the pastor, of the minister, and of the academic person in such a storm, is remain there, not fleeing away, not running away, being aware of what's going on, but not also losing his vision and her appetite in remaining there. But wounded.
The other word you used also in the lecture is the word being vulnerable. Broosheid.
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 You call it in Afrikaans also broosheid?
In Afrikaans it's broos, you know.
That's beautiful. That's in Dutch. In Dutch, it's the same word, broosheid. And during those days, I wrote a little book just because I wanted to do something in that lockdown. Volharden in de broosheid.
Yeah.
To remain standing in the broosheid.
Yeah.
So that sort of paradox, you know, that broosheid is just so vulnerability, but still to remain standing.
Yeah. That's I want us to talk about that a bit because in the academic world and many of people who tune in or watch this might also agree with me that it's often experienced as a hard world, you know, it's a hard space. The thing of standards and rigor and then often what element that comes in these days or these years is also the issue of competition. You know, I see it many times with research grants. It's a competitive grant, or you know, you must remain competitive, and you must also, in that sense, also project yourself as strong. You know, as really somebody who I know the answers, and how do you bring the question of vulnerability in that context as well? How do we, in a more authentic way, I think that's the thing, still do scholarship that impact our worlds, and especially for budding theologians. I mean, we theologians, so we talk about that, but also scholars at large, broader. How do we do it in such a way that we don't betray the trade, but also being authentic in terms of the reality that we find ourselves, the vulnerability. And I say that from a South African perspective. This faculty, our journey as a faculty of theology at Stellenbosch, you know, where in terms of theological prowess, this is a faculty with a I think a reputation that, you know, of academic excellence, and at the same time, we also have this history of you know, where we're coming from in terms of apartheid, in terms of our support, theological support for apartheid. But then also, of course, a lot have changed over the last decade or two in terms of being an ecumenical faculty, but still a faculty that has to grapple within the Stellenbosch context, within the broader South African context, with the ongoing reality of whether it be inequalities that continue, the vulnerability of communities, and that spills over into the university and the faculty, because the students, our students that come here, are students who have, you know, we've got the passionate students, they want to change the world, but also they're also in many ways also vulnerable, you know, with the social realities, economic realities. The school that I came from, my family, that I still, in a sense, have to journey with. First generation student, the family doesn't understand. So how do I navigate that space? So there's also that broosheid, that vulnerability. And then, you know, in terms of research broader, you know, for our research to be authentic, we cannot go out and act as if everything is clear, you know, we've got all the answers. We still need to keep that vulnerability in mind. So how does it play out in your context? You know, I mean, German, when we think of the German theologian, Willie Jennings, recently, when he wrote that book, one of his most recent books, he was speaking about, you know, when the German theologian is the one who has it all. You know,
Yeah, I'm Belgian, you know. I can always say I've seen it and I've been there and I've done it, you know. Okay, no, it's it is this image, yes, of course, the German theologian who has
and of course it's a stereotype.
It's a stereotype, yeah, right.
Stereotype.
And they try to keep it up, you know, this hierarchical and, let me say, more traditional way of being an academic. But slowly but surely, there too, you know, this is changing in many ways, because we have, of course, also these huge challenges in Europe, like migration and so. And this is also changing our systems in many ways. Yeah. So we, for instance, there are a lot of programs in running these days in the University of Bonn to support people with migration background, to support people, refugees, to support good people who wanna continue their work but had to flee their country or so. Which is a good thing, I think. I would say, Reggie, two things. At the one hand, and that's one of the responses, could be in an academic setting. Well, we study this element of vulnerability. We find ways to deal with that in a modern society, which is then the buzzwords resilience. Yes, you know, we will fight it. You know, there's a trouble, there's a difficult situation. We will fight it. That's one answer. Okay, good. Yeah. So there's a lot of projects on resilience and on care ethics related to resilience and supporting people in getting better. Mm-hmm. Get over it, please. Yeah. But at the same time, we have to be honest about what you also said. You referred to your background here in Africa, the context where young people come from, the students come from. These days, I would say also for Europe, where do these people come from, these young people who attend universities, and the democratic context also for universities. It's a very democratic business these days, universities in Western Europe. You only pay €500, so to say, for a semester, which is not so much money. And you get a free ticket for the bus and the train for a semester. Yeah. So I'm often joking about this with the students. You know who pays this. You know? We pay for it. Of course, we as a community pay for it. Joking this often, but we know a lot of these kids come with mental health problems and are deeply unsecure about the future and. Yeah, in many ways, okay, we all know like I call it the poly crisis and so on. So that's how shall we really be honest in addressing these dynamics of vulnerability. And you named yours, and I name mine now like this. And that is a huge question, I think. So and for me, this means really that we. And that's what I find so deeply interesting in your faculty here. There's a lot of work been done in attracting young people from underprivileged contexts. And also in opening up in the transformation of the faculty.
Absolutely.
I must say this is. Last year I was already deeply impressed where you had this general meeting there with the new curricula and so on.
Yes.
I really believe that there is the starting point. And that's what we need to do, I think. It's to start that collaborative effort together with our students, together with our colleagues from all the backgrounds, and say, well, this is us. This is the new we. The new we. And who are you and who am I and what can we learn from each other? And that is sometimes very conflict material, but sometimes also very deeply joyful.
And creative.
The
missiologist,
and there's a lot of laughter.
The missiologist speaks of creative tension.
Creative tension.
Creative tension, a lot of laughter there as well.
Like in marriage, like in relationship, like in friendship, creative tension.
I like the perspective that, yes, we can talk about the broosheid, the vulnerability, it is there, it's a reality. But this is what we see in our students, and like you said, the story of how they emerge researchers, as theologians, we also see the resilience. Your reference to resilience.
Yeah.
So
which is not a bad thing.
Which is not a bad thing.
But it's not the only
asset.
thing.
Yeah, it's an asset they have, and that's the storm, in a sense, pulls out that asset, pulls out that character to be able to.
But you know what I wanted to say with this resilience idea is, I agree with you. Of course, this can really pull you out of the storm, but it can also be understood as you have to struggle harder.
Okay, that's the flip side.
That's the flip side. Yeah, you're a loser. So
try harder. What's wrong with you?
Yeah.
That type of thing, yeah.
That
You're
type
right.
of
I mean,
thing.
that almost the dark side. That's almost the dark side of only emphasizing the individual reality. That just come on, try harder.
Yeah.
Well, it's part of a bigger systemic reality.
Yeah, right.
And we should also affirm and also acknowledge the difficulty, the struggle also in that, the vulnerability in that. And
but between the person and the system, there is the community.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of work that needs to be done. I think
like
these
that.
days. Yeah.
Between the person and the system.
There's the community.
There's the community.
There's the
community.
Habermas would say that's the Kommunikationsgemeinschaft, the community of communication. You need to talk with each other. You need to deal with the issues, and I must say honestly, this is also for me a challenge, because I like to write about the system.
Yeah.
I like to be a person of faith for myself.
Yeah.
But this community can also be so demanding, so difficult,
Yeah.
Please leave me alone, I want to be on my own.
Yeah, no.
Or I write beautiful papers about the systemic thing, but the community is the hardest part.
Yeah. That's where the rubber hits the road.
Really?
That's really where the rubber hits the road. Where you have to also sometimes make trade-offs. You can't have it all.
Yeah, right.
And you have to negotiate also the complexities of all the kind of personalities that we work with.
Right.
To find that.
Yeah, especially in an academic setting. And in academic leadership, especially.
Yes. Bert, I want us to start to draw it to a close.
Yeah.
I mean, I would love to. We can
continue
for a long time. But I was wondering, budding theologians listening, even who are in the first year in theology, younger theological students, theologians, those who are in the master's, PhD level, those who are young academics, youth. Had a vast experience. You've served as president in Religious Education Association, which largely spans the Americas and North Americas and Europe, I suppose. You served, in the International Association for Study of Youth Ministry, now with the European Forum for Religious Educators. What would be your message to budding theologians who sometimes feel literally they are in the eye of the storm? Whether it be a supervisor, but or a deadline that's looming, that sometimes you feel that you're overwhelmed. To the context you refer to, the context of mental health. But that has this aspiration. I feel this vocation. Through my gift, my call, I want to make a difference. From your vast experience, what would be now your message to those those budding, emerging theologians?
Well, I would say these contexts, wherever you are, and based on the same, let me say, central experiences that we since 2020 really share with each other, let's say it this way. In those complex contexts, we need professionalization. We need professionals. So this is part of the problem in your country, also in my country, the lack of good teachers. Yes, yeah. So the professionalization is one of the struggles we're dealing with these days. Yeah. So the ones who are already in service, to professionalize them further, and then to attract young people who want to become teachers. Yes, it's really a deep struggle. So we need to find new ways of professionalization. And there are all kinds of scenarios, but that's going too deep into detail. I really believe the professionalization is an important thing. So, for instance, for religious diversity, we need to, and that's one of the working issues that we need to deal also in our faculty in Bonn, is still the religious diversity, taking that more into account, I would say, and then finding ways to work on religious literacy and to work on religious communication, and worldview communication. So the communication and the literacy, I mean, that's the sort of professional work that needs to be done. That's one thing. And the other thing, and that is, I think, very central for a theologian, and it should actually be very, very evident, is prayer.
Yeah.
And that sounds perhaps a bit strange, but actually it should be in the heart of our work, I would say. The ability to hand over and to say, well, to dedicate, to decentrate in a way also, you see, and say, well, I'm just a servant, servant leadership, so to say. I'm just a servant in the vineyard of and we're talking now about Stellenbosch, of course, working in the beautiful
vineyards of Stellenbosch,
wineries of Stellenbosch. I'm just one of those working here, and and handing over, so that means between two classes, or between two meetings, or between two moments of engagement, stepping back and be aware of the Holy Spirit. Let me say it this way. I mean, that's now very, very briefly and succinctly, but the Holy Spirit who can make you aware of the things that need to be said and not need to be said. Should not be said, but should be interiorized, and you should take them along with you, and this kind of thought. So it's the two, I think, the professionalization on one hand, and the prayerful presence at the other hand. Professional and prayerful presence.
To hold on to both, in a sense.
To hold on to both,
not to to let either one go.
So it's you could say it's politics and mystics. So the old, like Johann Baptist Metz would say, the old central dynamics, or Dorothy Sölle, the old central dynamics of your Christian faith.
Wow. Bert, Roebben, thank you. Wow, it's so wonderful to have you here in Stellenbosch, and we are really honored to have you as one of our extraordinary professors in practical theology and missiology, for your insights, your professionalization, or your professionalism, right? But then also for your, if I may say, your piety, your pietate. You don't only come here as somebody with particular technical knowledge, but you come here with a particular ethos and a particular presence. And as you are here, amongst us, it really rubs off in terms of that presence. So deep appreciation from our side. And we will continue these conversations.
We will continue the conversation. I
think
thank
that's
you
the big
for giving this opportunity to me to be part of a learning community
Fantastic.
in this beautiful faculty. So
Yeah.
good luck with the faculty. Good luck
Yeah.
with theology deeply rooted in Africa.
Yeah.
And, continue the conversation.
And globally
Yes.
connected.
Yeah. Good.
Great. Thank you, Bert. And also our greetings to the colleagues in Bonn. Wonderful.
I will do that. Yes.